Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Altar of Stars. I'm very grateful that you found your way here. My name is Teagan West. I'm a ritualist, astrologer, drum maker, and ancestral lineage healing practitioner on Haudenosaunee land, so-called upstate New York. And my own ancestors come from Ireland, Syria, Lebanon, Sicily, and Anishinaabe territory in what is now known as Canada. And my ancestors are a big part of my work and the readings that I offer here. So they're a synthesis of astrology and divination, but also animism and land connectedness to form this kind of intersection of cultural repair through these ancestral knowledge systems. And so if you like what I share here, you can find my work over on SUBSTACK at the Altar of Stars, where there's a pretty big archive at this point of weekly astrology readings in the form of podcasts that I've been sharing for a couple years, as well as tarot spreads and different ancestral rituals for each of the Wheel of the Year holidays or the new and full moons every month. So find me over there if you're interested in going deeper. But yeah, I hope that you enjoy this reading, and if you ever desire to work together one-on-one, there's opportunities to do that. You can find the links for that in the show notes. But yeah, enjoy, take good care of yourselves, my friends. Thanks for being here. My friend, welcome back to the Altar of Stars. This is the week ahead reading for July 5th, 2026, and I've decided that I want to offer a bit of a look at the month ahead of July itself from a high level. I'm not going to go into all of the nitty-gritty astrology throughout the month as much as share what came through my divination, because I feel that that's a pattern. That's something that we can actually fall into, is like getting into the nitty gritty and actually getting caught up in the like mouse level energies, when really what's happening is much bigger and requires us to zoom out a bit. And so as I even sat down this morning to prepare for this reading, the biggest sense was like, don't get too caught up in what you can see. Like, try to look between the lines here, because there's so much more going on than is self-evident if we just look at the face level, right? The face value. So I am going to share, I did a divination and it feels really big and really clear, and it comes as no surprise to me, because I feel that the energies moving through the collective right now are just wild. And I think it's another one of those humbling moments for me as an astrologer, where we can talk about these things all day long. We can predict, we can plan ahead and look at the shapes and contours of the different energies, but to actually live into them is an entirely different experience. And there's no playing God. There's no getting out of this alive, So I do hope that all of you out there that are listening to this are able to find ways to resource yourself. I sense, just in my own experience and talking to beloveds in my life, that the amplification of energy, all at once, all of a sudden, a lot of fire and air that we knew was coming, right? But of course our nervous system still has to catch up with the program a bit. It feels very agitating, is what I'm sensing. Like, people are pissed off and at the end of their rope, and the nerves are prickly. The reaction to stimuli is very close to the surface, right? That reactivity. And I've been talking about this all year. Our biggest resource, like if you go back to the year ahead reading, I have to remind myself this. Everything I'm about to say in this reading is exactly the medicine that I need to hear as well, because I'm with you all in it. I'm not separate from it. But I was remembering that like the biggest thing that came through the year ahead high level for 2026 is like tempering reactivity is our greatest medicine right now. If you're to focus your attention on anything, it's to take care of regulating your nervous system so that you can actually be present and meet the moment of what is coming. This is the time for it. This is the apex of it. As we enter into July and August and the rest of 2026, it has never been a more opportune time to take care of yourself and to do whatever it is that you need to do to feel grounded and regulated in your body. And that might sound oversimplifying, but for me, it's about actually creating the conditions internally to meet this well. Because if we're agitated and dysregulated and spiraling out, we're not actually going to be able to meet what's available to us in this moment, right? We're going to be blind and deaf to it, because that's what the animal body does when it's triggered and activated, right? And so regardless of what is happening in the astrology, regardless of anything else that I say through this reading, I would be remiss if I didn't just like plainly put it as like, do what you need to do to find your center and mitigate reactivity as much as possible. Because when we are in that reactive space to what's happening, again, we're missing the opportunities that are available there that actually open up within the circumstances, right? And something that came up earlier in the spring was this concept that restraint of our impulses and our reactivity is not necessarily repression of those impulses. Restraint is a healthy way to take a breath and interrupt the amygdala response to stimuli as perceiving everything as a threat. And actually talking ourselves down from that and taking a moment to fact check the reactivity and be like, is this actually a threat? Or is it my body so on edge that it's perceiving it as one and blowing things out of proportion? Because then I'm existing in a paradigm of reality that feels unsafe, and I'm interpreting everything through that filter, right? It's unhelpful to interpret everything through the amygdala response, right? And so for me, it's like a healthy level of restraint, being able to like hold the energy of reactivity and let it move through our system before we actually act out on it. That is a way to be in an inquiry and to interrupt the like snap response, right? So that we can actually see if we can drop in and open into it a little bit more and see what else is available here, right? When I take a breath and I regulate my nervous system and I get curious with what's actually happening and I fact check whether or not the situation at hand is actually a threat to my safety, then I can better respond from a place that's aligned with curiosity, that's aligned with openness, and an inquiry around, okay, what else is available here that I'm not seeing? I feel that might be the most important question for July, at the very least, if not for the months to come, is like, if I take a moment to breathe, find my center, and gain just a notch more perspective, what's actually available here that I wouldn't otherwise be seeing? A lot of what came up in the divination surprised me, because a lot of it was about opening the ways, like road opening in magical practice. It's like, okay, for me, it's asking those spirits and those beings that work with me to show me what's in my blind spot, to help me to see what's in my blind spot. That is huge. And it's especially helpful when we're functioning from the very narrow view of reactivity, right? It's to be like, okay, if I take a breath here and I zoom out for a minute, what else is in the picture that I would be missing? Hugely helpful. And I'm taking that in just as much, like really big. So I'm just going to continue with this and share more of what came up in the divination. The first image that they showed me was like, you gotta do what you need to do to feel like you have your hands on the reins of your own sense of sovereignty. Because when we feel triggered, unsafe, reactive in the pain body and the prickliness, right, it leads to this like deeper disconnection from our sense of choice. Right, we're functioning from a place as if we don't have choice, as if life is just happening to us, and it puts us in a really disempowered place that is kind of like paired with reactivity in my experience. And so we feel like we don't have our hands on the reins and we're just being pulled at the mercy of whatever circumstances are present outside of us. And so the true work of sovereignty is finding our center, our resource, our regulation at a nervous system level, so we can restore and remember that we have choice in how we respond to the circumstances at hand. And real sovereignty is not about blocking the world out, right? It's not about nothing having impact on us and being in this kind of like hyper individualized state of isolation. That's not helpful. But it's about being able to be in our center such that we can negotiate healthfully with the circumstances at hand and have choice and decide how we want to respond to them, what we want to do with them. It's a place of inquiry, actually, in my own experience of like truly being in my sovereignty, being in my seat. It opens up the possibility for curiosity because I'm not afraid that I'm going to self-abandon. I'm in my place of self-trust. Like, I know I got me. I'm functioning from self, not parts, right? And I'm moving from this place of curiosity to say like, okay, what's the full picture of what's going on here? I trust that I got me. I trust that nothing outside of me is going to try to take that sense of agency away from me. And so I can take my time responding. I don't feel pressured or desperate out of this fear of self-abandonment, right? And so it has to do with the relational field. It has to do with how we're navigating self and other and this space between. But so much of it is really that like having our hands on the reins is not about controlling our circumstances. And I notice this a lot when people go into like hyper isolation around boundaries, where they just cut themselves off from all influence from others around them. They don't listen to other people, that they're not willing to negotiate. To me, that's not healthy boundaries. That's isolationism, right? And yeah, I just noticed that it actually cuts us off from a sense of participation. It's not helpful at the end of the day. We don't actually have our hands on the reins, and we're trying to control the situation by doing this kind of like false individuation thing, right? Or hyper individualism, I should say. And so it's not about doing that. It's not about the maneuver of like, if I just self-isolate, I can control the scenario, right? It's about like having our hands on the reins through regulation, through self-trust, through establishing our center. So again, doing whatever helps you to feel more connected to that sense of agency and choice. And like, you know, this kind of leaned back space of like, it doesn't have to happen right now. There's going to be a lot of urgency this month and onwards. That's my sense. I never like to make a strong claim, but I already feel it. There's a sense of urgency, like, ooh, we're reacting, everything's happening right now, it's all at once, we're activated, so it all feels imminent and overwhelming. And so the best way to respond to that is to be like, doesn't have to happen right now. It can happen in an hour when I've regulated myself. We can have this conversation tomorrow when we've taken some breathing room, right? Like there's a sense of really slowing down to accurately be able to interrupt our reactions and impulses and to, again, get curious with them. But that sense of urgency to make a strong claim, I feel it's going to need to be mitigated every day. Like our daily practice is slowing the fuck down and taking a step back and being like, it's cool. I can ride with the trickster, you know, and not getting so worked up about it, right? This is like, I talk about this all the time, but, you know, a big teaching in my community is on trickster medicine, and that there's someone always playing the role of the trickster in ceremony. And that person, their role is to disrupt our need to control and the rigidity and the urgency and like everything is such a big deal all the time. We're taking it all so seriously. Trickster medicine is so important to be divergent to that, like, grasp. And to say, like, this is all a dance. You're not dancing. You're trying to control the choreography. And so let's like trip you up a bit so that you can be more skillful and agile and like responsive to the changing circumstances. You don't get to control all this, right? And that can be fun. I hate to say it, feels like a wild thing to say right now. But like, is there a possibility that this could all feel a little bit more enjoyable? Question mark? That's good medicine for me, personally, and my fucking Virgo stellium that takes everything so seriously. It's like, are you having fun out there? And that's not to override the like very wacky and uncomfortable circumstances at hand, but it is to like right size it and to say, okay, but is everything a mess and horrible and fucked up right now? Because if that's the story you're telling yourself, it's gonna feel like that. So again, it's opening up space. It's this like wayfinding of like, where is the crack in the scenario, like in the landscape, where things could actually be a little bit more enjoyable and playful, and we can not take ourselves too damn seriously. It's like Coyote in the South, and how I've been taught that is connected to the younger self, is connected to the inner child, where there's a sense of innocence that's not naivety, but the innocence that can look at the world through a lens of possibility and see brightness and see levity, even in really harsh circumstances. And I think that even just with the new Jupiter in Leo energy, it's like there's a fine line for us being in like pridefulness that becomes stubborn. I know it well. I'm ruled by my chart ruler's in Leo. I'm very stubborn, and it comes from this pridefulness and like taking myself too seriously. And so the antidote is like the gift of that Leo energy as the playfulness of the inner child, as the innocence and possibility that becomes available when we try to have fun with it. And so again, just to right size your sense of discontent or agitation with the way things are right now, it's like, what would it do to try to laugh at the chaos just for a minute? Not in a bypassy way, but to check ourselves when we're taking it all too damn seriously. And that, of course, with Mercury retrograde, of course, with the trickster moving backwards, we're supposed to be disoriented. It's supposed to challenge us to a certain degree, right? Like, we're in the sweet spot if things feel like a mess. So what becomes available when we're upside down? That's that, right? So the other things that I want to talk about have to do with the presence of the Hermit coming up in my divination a lot, and which also surprised me. But what it clicked in regards to like the rest of the ecosystem of the reading is like, there's going to be an urge to get so caught up in what's going on outside of us. There's going to be an urge to get pulled into the drama and pulled into the reactivity and pulled into the story of what's happening at face value. And if we're in that drama, if we're in that story, it's not available to us to zoom out and see the other things that are going on, the other options that are available, what's in our blind spot, right? And so the presence of the Hermit to me spoke to this sense of like, you can divert all your attention outwardly and get so caught up in the drama of it all. That's a choice. Or you can actually turn that gaze, turn that inquiry, that agitation inwards as a way of alchemizing what's going on inside. Like when we redirect the focus to not just getting caught up in the drama outside of us, but actually turning the inquiry to what's happening inside of us, and allowing that to do its work on us, the sacred agitation of that, it becomes a whole different experience. And so for me too, this was a nod to like, it's a good moment if you notice yourself getting agitated or being on edge, to actually just draw inwards a little bit, draw your energy in, gather yourself back up. Where are you right now as you're listening? If this resonates, of course. like, where is your energy? Is it all up in other people's business and in just like random shit going on in the field? Are you just distracting yourself and dispersing yourself? Is that helpful? Genuine questions. Of course, we all have things to do and tend in our world, but again, it's like right sizing how much is actually helpful. And so the sense is like, if we draw that energy back to our center, what's going on beneath the surface? Because usually agitation, like emotional agitation, is a sign that something's getting worked out beneath the surface of our awareness. That feels so fucking true. And it's edgy because it's like, I'll just speak for myself. I notice the impulse to like get caught up in what's going on out there is a distraction from how uncomfortable it is to be going through a huge transformation process in here, like inside of me. It's scary to change, actually. It threatens a lot of my egoic attachments and identifications to who I am and how all this is going. And again, my sense of control, my grip on reality has to loosen in order for me to be transformed. And sometimes we don't have a choice in it. Sometimes that process, that catalyst is just going to happen. And it's usually a really good thing. And when it is happening in this way, it usually feels even more uncomfortable because it's confusing. It's like, oh my God, I don't even know who I am anymore or where I sit. My stories are changing, and it's all connected, right? It's like the change that's happening outside of us is initiating a transformation inside of us, and vice versa. As within, so without. It's all part of the field. It's all a call and response. That dialogue is doing its work on us, right? And so this is the moment of truth where if we're just getting caught up in the change that's happening outside and we're not staying connected to our center and keeping our finger on the pulse of what it's initiating inside, it's going to feel way more hellacious. It's going to feel like shit. And we're more likely to be functioning in just like that surface level reactivity than actually dropping down into the discomfort that's happening internally and seeing if we can let it move all the way through. I'm not suggesting that we torture ourselves and like sit in the agitation. I'm suggesting that we find ways to move it through us. But in order to know what that's got to look like, we have to go into it deep enough to understand how it's trying to change us from the inside out. The stories, the patterns, the things we're living into, the impressions are changing from the inside out. And so the question is like, if I drop into that and I let I get underneath the anger and the rage and the grief and all of it, and I maybe even break into the laughter that's also there at this process. Like, I've been feeling the full spectrum of emotions on a daily basis. And to me, there's intelligence there. It's like, whoa, okay, things are trying to move. Like, there's a purge that's happening at a deep psychic level. And so if I can drop into that and I can get beneath those layers, right, by letting them move through fully and tending my emotions and tending my system as it is processing this, then I get to truth. Then I get to the core of it, right? And it's not helpful. I'll say this right now. It won't be helpful to try to dig at this. That's not the point. A lot of what came up in the divination around like how to move through this process is to fucking rest. Like, to be gentle. It was very 12th house energy. It's like, sleep a little more if you can. Be in those liminal spaces of non-doing. Because this is the intelligence of the 12th house. It's a place of withdrawal. It's a place of hermitage on purpose. It's also the place of the psyche and the subconscious on purpose. So much of those processes happen in the dark, happen behind the scenes of our conscious awareness. And so for me, a lot of this energy is like moving from the hubbub, the hullabaloo of the external stimuli and dramas, and withdrawing as a restorative mechanism to let our system move through this process with as little amount of trigger as possible. And again, there's a fine line between insulating ourselves. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that you find moments to rest a little bit more than you usually would, and allow for this process to do its work on you. And if you notice you're getting agitated, like, try to take a minute to be with what's really there, to be with what's beneath the agitation, which might be like grief or fear or a whole slew of emotions that are evidence of something actually surfacing in your psyche, something actually moving and transforming inside of you, right? The hermitage is a way to honor the bigness of this process and to not miss it. This is something that I find to be so real, like as a 12th houser in big ways, and also as a Scorpio rising, I feel like since I was born, I'm always in a fucking process. And a lot of people in my life that are close to me know that it requires a lot of alone time to be like kind of so intense as just a human. And there's no shame in that. I used to feel a lot of shame around it. But I'm at the point with my beloveds where I can just say like, hey, I'm in a process right now, and I can't give words to it. I'm not interested in trying to explain what's going on, because I know I know it to be unhelpful to try to intellectualize what I'm experiencing. Like, I just got to feel it. I got to be in a nonverbal space. And it sometimes looks like me going quiet for a minute so I can be present with that. And I say this because just moving through this so many times in my life on like a cyclical basis, it's also helpful to be able to communicate to other people that we need to do that, right? So that folks can almost like right size their expectations of what we have capacity for as we're letting these things move through, and that we're all in this together to a certain degree right now. Like, the agitation has been so evident in the field, just like going about existing amongst other humans. And so it's like, I think we all need a minute, to be honest. If I may be so bold, like, can everyone just take a day off and just let this move through? Because going back to the point that, like, it's possible that we miss the opportunity to do so, and then it's like disintegrated. Like there's a split in our psyche because there's this deep stuff trying to get worked out, and meanwhile we're up here in the conscious, like, reactive space, just distracting ourselves with outer world stuff. And meanwhile there's like a deep process that's calling for our attention and our protection and our presence that isn't getting what it needs. So we prolong this like psychological split. It prolongs the strain of that agitation in our system. So my suggestion is, like, when you feel that happening, to just take a minute for yourself, take an evening to be with what's moving through. Maybe be in divination, maybe be with the land, maybe just rest and be in that 12th house space. The truth is, it's most often that there's not a lot to do here when we're moving through these cycles and moments. And this too shall pass. But we actually have to give ourselves the opportunity for that, to metabolize at a deep psychological level. And some of the other things that came up were about like sleep and dreaming and what is happening in the subconscious. I was just saying this the other day to some of the folks in Ancestor Circle. I'm running 2 different cohorts right now of Ancestor Circles, and the one cohort, everyone keeps falling asleep. And it's so funny to me, because if I were in my ego about it, I'd be like, what the fuck, y'all? Everyone's sleeping? But when I'm in like the ritualist, when I'm in my ritualist center, it's like, that's part of the ritual. Like, the ancestors are doing their work on us in sleeping. Like, there's people having full-on dreams during our sessions, and then they come back a week later and they're like harvesting the insight. So, you know, it's like, if I take that at face value, I'm missing it. And what's really going on is a very deep process that's occurring in dream time, in sleep, in these like subliminal spaces. And I sense that that's like, it's crazy. There's 8 people in this group and it's happening, to that degree. And for me, it's a signal. It's like, oh, we need this in the field. We need rest, I'm thinking about how July, at least in Irish history, was one of the hardest months because it was a month of like starvation and hunger, where at the peak of summer, we associate summer with like socializing and parties and all the external world stuff. And personally, I'm always exhausted in the summer. I withdraw quite a bit in the summer to just like take care of me and be in a kind of nonverbal space. And I remember learning about this years ago, that the month of July was like the hunger month in Ireland because there were no resources, and our animal body was like, we just need to rest and like hold these resources. The heat is too agitating, right? So I share this too because it's like there's also an imprint around summertime that could go both ways. In how I experience it, it is actually a time for deep rest. Those Cancerian waters are like asking for softening and presence. So I think I've made my point, huh? The last thing I do want to say at a divination level is that I I was asking for some plant kin that might be helpful in being like a balm or an antidote or a teacher in all of this. And I just kept getting poisonous plants, which I thought was so funny because in a way it's like, yeah, I mean, they were plant teachers that came up that just had so much to do with transmuting the shadow and so much to do with like inner alchemy, datura being one of them. And I share this because I think actually working with datura, thorn apple, could be a good way to, at like a spirit level, help these things move through. It's obviously a poisonous plant, but I know folks, myself included, that work with essences to help the psychological purge. I mean, that's making more sense to me now. Like, that's really what this is giving our psyche the opportunity to purge all the excess stuff, like to burn away what's not helpful or useful anymore, to offer it up to Kali Ma, to offer it up to the forces that can help like decompose the excess shit that's in our system. And I feel like it's shame and it's fear and it's guilt and it's all these impressions that we're identified with at like an ego, but also an emotional level. It's really real to be identified with our shame or our fear or our guilt, right? Our identity, our ego actually builds itself around those currents and impressions. And so in a way, it's like needing to take time to disidentify, disintegrate, and dissolve, like let that psychic baggage, that psychic weight be purged from our system. This just feels so real in my lived experience, at least, like the need to cleanse the excess, the need to purge it. And that, for me, most effectively done in ritual, most effectively done in ceremony, like taking it to our altar, taking it to the land, taking it to the powers, like the vulture medicine that can help like eat away and metabolize what's been rotting in our psyche. And that's what I sense, is that it's a purification that wants to occur from the inside out. I'm receiving a lot just in saying this out loud, and I'm feeling it in my body in the way that when they're in Ayurveda, when there is ama, when there's undigested stuff in our intestinal tract, like in our digestive system, it can create a lot of agitation in our nervous system, like all the built up shit that hasn't been fully processed. It creates agitation, and it's a sign that we're carrying excess stuff that's not helpful to be carrying, right? Like we need to cleanse, we need to purge it. And the thing that helps purge in Ayurvedic kind of like physiology is amplifying Agni, amplifying the digestive fire, the fire element, the metabolic fire. And that actually came up in the divination and I didn't understand it until now. It's like, okay, we need to work with the fires of metabolization and the waters of the subconscious, right? We need to bring that flame into the great below, into those waters, and help it to transmute. Lots of alchemy here, lots of fire and water, and I feel the need to make sure we're holding them in equal balance, because there's already a lot of fire in the field, and okay, now I'm understanding too. It's like if that fire is directed outwardly, if we're caught up in the fire in the field that's like agitating and reactive, it's going to be destructive. But if we turn it inwards and allow that fire to do its work on us and purge the psychic excess that's built up, it becomes constructive. So it's about how we work with the fire that's here. That's the whole point. I understand. Thank you. Wow, yeah, it's like where are we feeding that fire? Because this is something I learned from Ayurveda more than anything, like Pitta dosha, this constitutional essence, this force of creation that is the source of metabolizing anything. It's built from the elemental qualities of both water and fire. That makes up Pitta dosha. That makes up this kind of constitutional energy as it moves through all of creation. And so it is this force that can spread and be really destructive and burn us out. Or if we wield it well, it becomes constructive in helping us to alchemize and metabolize. And Pitta dosha is, of course, in our digestive system. It's also in our heart. It's also in our mind. There are these different fires that help to metabolize impressions, and they're all connected to one another. They're the sub-doshas of Pitta. And so it is this, I'm understanding now, it's like in the matrix of our own inner ecology. How are we working with these energies, right? And understanding that, like even this piece that came up around if there's excess shit built up in our gut, it's going to make us agitated at a psychic and an emotional level. So working with all of those different fires as they move through our own inner ecology is the point. And it might sound simplifying, but I'm really like sensing in my own system right now that it's also about creating the conditions in our physical body for that purification to be happening. This is something that I'm so grateful for learning this early in my life, that if my physical vessel is not well, if I'm not taking care of myself, if my digestion's fucked, if whatever else, I've had so many health issues throughout my life, and it greatly impacted my psyche. It greatly impacted my ability to be a magical practitioner, and so it might sound simplifying, and I can feel people that get like disgruntled at talking about taking care of ourselves at like a health level, but it's a foundational way to create the conditions for our awareness, for our psychic health to be clear, for our mind and our spirit and our emotions to be clear. We exist inside of this body, and that is a hard thing to navigate. It makes things really challenging to be at the mercy of this physical vessel, right? And it creates a choice. If we take care of ourselves, it is creating conditions within this container for something to happen, right? If we're creating clarity in our gut, it creates clarity in our mind. If our channels, if those nadis, like this is something that I find to be so profound in the Vedic system, that the subtle energy channels, like similar to the meridians in Chinese medicine, there's thousands of nadis that run through our system. And if you were to, open up a body, you wouldn't be able to see them with the naked eye, but they're fully entangled within the matrix of the physical channels, of like the veins and arteries, the muscular tissue. These subtle energy channels move everywhere. And this is something that's talked about a lot in Ayurvedic healing. Oh, a hummingbird. Oh, a little cutie. Aw. But the intertwined nature of them, we don't take either of it for granted. We hold it in equal weight, in the sense that if the physical channels are blocked, right? If there's shit going on in the physical body that's clogging the system, it's going to then clog the spiritual body. It's going to clog the nadis and the ability for Shakti, for like actual, I should say more like pranic energy to move through our system, which affects our consciousness. That's my whole point here, right? And so I feel surprised by this, but it does feel true to me that it's like also being mindful that how our physical vessel is doing is going to impact our consciousness at a very 1-to-1 ratio. And to not take that for granted, right? We can be doing all the spiritual practice, we can be doing all this other shit to like keep ourselves centered, but if we're not taking care of the physical vessel, it's going to have impact on everything else. Mind, body, and spirit, right? And emotions. So I think what I'm sensing here is this is also kind of a suggestion to check in without being like neurotic about it, but just to say like, are there ways that we can create, I'm taking this for myself, it's my own medicine. Like, are there ways that I can take better care of my animal body right now so that I'm creating the conditions for ease at like a psychic level to be more available to me, for the channels to be moving more clearly, right? It's a real thing. And I feel people out there that don't want to hear it. So don't shoot the messenger. I mean, you know, it's like, it's all a choice, I think, is the heart of this. And it's all an inquiry around like, how are we doing? And if we're not doing so hot right now, like, what are the contributing factors? That's what I feel for myself. I know the ways that the agitation and the over-identification I feel with like being annoyed by the state of things and being caught up in the drama of what's going on out there is just like fire that is destructive. It's me giving into something that spreads in an unhelpful way, right? I'm feeding the fire that just creates more fire in the field in ways that aren't helpful. And so to offset it, it's like, let me redirect that energy inwards and let it do its work on me. Like, let it purge and move the emotions that are actually here. And let me also create the conditions and how I'm taking care of myself for the channel, the vessel, to be really clear and supported. So I can be resourced, right? So I can actually embrace what's available to me here in all that's moving through. I don't personally want to move through this time annoyed and agitated and dysregulated. I want to move through this time feeling like I have a sense of how this could all be really constructive and really open pathways into new ways of creating and interacting with this moment. Because that's what I sense, is that actually underneath all the surface level stimuli, there is a lot trying to make its way into the world. There's a lot trying to be born, right? Fire is as destructive as it is creative. And so let me not miss the opportunity to get curious with like, well, what could actually be generative about all of this? It's all a choice. So, anyhoodle. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, I mean, it's iterative at this point, but the last thing that came through at the very end of my divination was about illusion and what it is, or I should say how it is that we're seeing. Like, how are we looking at what's going on? What lenses, what vantage point are we looking through? Because that is going to determine our experience of reality. I talk about this all the time, but there's also, I want to say this so plainly. I feel that there will be more and more smoke and mirrors. There's going to be more and more need for discerning what is going on outside of us and not getting caught up in the drama and the story. You're probably tired of hearing me talk about it, but it has a lot to do with Neptune and Aries. It has a lot to do with like our sensory organs and what we're allowing to take in through our consciousness, or what we're allowing to take in through our senses, that then influences our seat of consciousness. It influences our vantage point, the lenses and filters we're looking through at the world. If we're flooding our system with social media and going into these weird dissociative trance states, it's going to create more of that in our consciousness. It's going to create more of this like illusory nature where we're not able to see things clearly. So again, it's like taking care of your mind, taking care of your body, taking care of your psyche. Those are our tools. To me, as a magical practitioner, more than anything, those are my tools. My meditation practice, my Qigong practice, the ways that I work with this container that interfaces with reality at all times, the way I choose to allow my consciousness to be influenced by the world, by external reality. That's my magician's wand right there. So, without pressuring ourselves, without creating more stress and strain, like, how can that be so relieving? How can it be so resourcing to know and to actually feel the like thank you from our animal body for taking time to rest, for taking time to regulate and come back to ourselves? It can be so sweet if we let it. It can feel so good, actually. And that's where the merit is, right? I'm a very stubborn person and very much a creature of habit. It takes a lot for me to change a pattern. And my system needs a lot of evidence and like incentive that it's worth it. And so when I'm trying to take better care of my mind or my body, I have to really bring my awareness to the ways that it's helping me feel better. I have to like write down, we felt better today. Keep going, you know? Like I have to really put in an effort to paying attention to the incentive to change, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one. It's hard work, but it's worth it, right? And it's helpful to put our attention on the ways that it is worth it, because that's more likely to help us shift the pattern and not just fall back into old, familiar life ways. So, enough of my telling people what to do. I'm never about telling people what to do. I don't know what's gotten into me. I'm not telling you what to do. Like, fuck whatever I say. Your choice, your sovereignty is the whole point. But this is just a pep talk because honestly, it's like probably just the medicine I need to hear. Hopefully others benefit. So I do want to just give the play-by-play of the week ahead to close out the episode here, like just to let everybody know what's going on astrologically. Of course, as usual, it all has to do with everything I just shared and what came through in the divination, but just for the specifics, here's the play-by-play of the week of July 5th, okay? On Sunday, Mars in Gemini, just freshly conjunct Uranus last Friday, Saturday, July 4th weekend, how timely. Mars is then going to trine Pluto retrograde. So whatever came up during the weekend then gets like taken into the depths of what's really there, right? Again, it's like the dynamic between all the surface level stimuli and maybe overwhelm, and then actually seeing the truth of the matter. But to see the truth of the matter, we need to like ground ourselves enough to be able to handle the truth. You know how it is. So that's a bit of an intense way to start off the week. I'll just say this much. It's already going to be intense because of the Mars-Uranus conjunction in Gemini being ruled by a Mercury retrograde. Like that dynamic, that combo is trickster at its finest. Like, whoa. So hold on to your butts. But the rest of the week feels like a bit of a recalibration in the wake of that intensity. And I think more than anything, now's a great moment to start considering how you want to maybe pull back a bit and resource yourself, you know, to stabilize the ship. So on Monday, July 6th, the Sun in Cancer is going to square Saturn in Aries. This is a little bit more stabilizing. Like I'm glad for it, if I'm being honest, after the very Gemini transformative airy weekend. I think that the sun squaring Saturn will provide some perspective and provide some like grounded insight. The truth at times can be hard to hear, but it is inevitably always helpful for helping us to get our finger on the pulse of what's most effective for where to put our attention and our energy, right? So sun squaring Aries, or Saturn in Aries. And then on Tuesday, I forgot this was coming, and it makes sense with everything that's happening, but Neptune in Aries is going to station retrograde on Tuesday. And I don't remember how long, forgive me, but I don't know how long Neptune will be retrograde. I believe it's through November, but I could be wrong on that, just naming. But it'll be a while, because this is how Neptune moves. But Neptune retrograde to me feels like why these themes of restraint and also the illusory nature, right? Everything I just said about clarifying our sense organs, being aware of what we're allowing to influence our consciousness, the impressions we're taking in, and the reality that's creating, how helpful or unhelpful it is for us to really see clearly what's going on here in this moment, right? Are you clouded? Do you feel weird and trancy and you're disassociating on Instagram? Like, asking myself these questions at the same time, but how helpful is that for us to see the truth of the moment rather than be caught up in the illusion, right? So for me, it's like all that fire element talk, directing it inwards, burning away the excess psychic baggage that has built up. Hopefully Neptune in Aries is helping us to do that, especially retrograde, right? We're taking that inwards. So that's on Tuesday, and it'll be a few months of Neptune retrograde. I'll have that date for you next week, proper. And then on Thursday, July 9th, Venus enters Virgo. And this isn't awesome. It's not bad either, but Venus has spent the last few weeks in Leo in a very like powerhouse position. And the entrance into Virgo is a bit of a curb of enthusiasm there, because this is the place of Venus's fall. Now, this is also my Venus return. I have Venus in Virgo, so you know I don't like to talk badly of her. But there's edges, right? There's beauty, there's intention, and it all depends on how we use it. To me, with having Venus in Virgo natally, I just see the blessings and the burdens there. The blessings the blessings being, that was so silly, the blessings being that of our attention as a very high form of love, right? That we don't pay attention. I think Alice Sparkly Cat posted this the other day. I loved it so much. We don't pay attention. We hold attention, right? I just love that so much. And it feels, as a Venus and Virgo native, there's something here around how we're using our attention that becomes a form of love and care, or can become a form of hyperfixation, criticism, mouse medicine, right? Getting too caught up in the details. A hawk just flew overhead as I said that, and it's like the opposite is hawk, is like high level, zooming out, being able to hold in our attention the awareness of love, that all things are worthy of love. There's no discriminating what or who is worthy of unconditional loving awareness. And that to me is the balance with Venus and Virgo. Am I in criticism, picking apart mouse medicine? Am I using that gift of my attention to be like, persnickety? Or am I zooming out and allowing my attention to hold way more loving awareness in the field for what is? And that Things don't need to change. I can love things as they are. And that at times it's helpful to be constructive about what we want to change. But if it takes us out of love, if it takes us out of that current of compassion and loving awareness, it's not helpful. So finding the balance between these things, right? Venus in Virgo can feel a little cold and disconnective if we give in too much to that, like, wanting things to be different kind of energy, that fixer energy, right? And it's like, can I love things as they are and know when it is constructive for things to change, especially in the relational field? This is Venus we're talking about. It all has to do with the relational field. And I find with Venus at fall here, it's not the most comfortable place. Saying Venus at fall, the essential dignity here is not a bad thing. It's not that this is a bad place for Venus. It's just that the planetary constitution of Venus as the one who kind of manages the relational field and negotiates how we're navigating it is out of its comfort zone in Virgo. Right? Venus is like having to find a neurodivergent way to do the thing that she wants to do. And so for me, it's like, what's the gift here in love as attention, this currency kind of thing? And also, how is this just kind of an awkward, uncomfortable place for Venus to be? It can get a little like tight and rigid if we're not still bringing loving awareness to whatever it is that we're relating to, whether that's other people or just the world as it is, right? So the relational field gets a little pivot. And then on Friday, which I find this feels really important to me, that immediately as Venus enters Virgo on Friday, Venus Day, she will come into conjunction with the South Node at 0 degrees of Virgo. And this is a releasing point. I also want to say that this is conjunct a very important fixed star that is very dear to my heart. My moon is at 0 degrees of Virgo, and this is just a very like specific place in the sky that has to do with ancestral inheritances. And so I can't help but feel that this is much bigger than we may consider at face value. Like this release that's happening with Venus conjunct the South Node, conjunct Regulus, the fixed star, is like, ooh, this is a bigger ancestral burden. This is like systems of care at a collective level, the world we inherited from our ancestors. How do these things move through the relational field at that level of awareness, right? And I'm mindful that the South Node, the nodal axis, is very soon about to shift into, in like 2-3 weeks. On July 26th, the North and South Node are going to shift into the Aquarius-Leo axis. So this is like the last point, the last moment. And Venus is bringing something important here. This release, this activation of some kind of like, for me, it feels like a karmic unwinding, right? There's something kind of being broken open, cracked open as Venus passes over the South Node and Regulus. It's deeply our own, and this is the nature of any kind of ancestral impressions that we're navigating personally or collectively. It's like it's something that is deeply our own. It's embedded within our own matrix. This is the thing about ancestors and spirit work, is they're the one kind of spirit to work with that doesn't just, like, we don't have necessarily full say in how much impact it's having on us, because they're part of our bone level DNA matrix. They're inside of us, right? And so the stuff we're experiencing is both deeply our own and also inherently intertwined with that ancestral matrix. It's also inherently part of something much bigger than us. And this is something that having my moon conjunct Regulus has really helped me to understand my lived experience as a human, being in a body, but also being an ancestor, where it's like, whoa, no matter how much I try to boundary myself from the influence that my people have on me, Like, I can set the space and be sovereign and be like, I don't want to deal with your shit. Like, just because you had this like weird alcoholism stuff in your life doesn't mean I have to deal with that. I choose to be sober to not take that on, right? It is very literal in those ways, but it's also helped me to understand that I can boundary myself, I can make certain choices, but I can never fully disentangle myself from those ancestral inheritances because they're embedded within my blood and bone DNA matrix. And so we must deal with it. It's part of being incarnate. It's part of being a spirit in this body, in this meat suit. We inherited those things and they live in us and they are intimately intertwined. We cannot extract them from our system. I'm so sorry to say it. I know, like, the reason it's been helpful for me to understand this is just how much I inherited, as we all do, but having to really reckon with that in really challenging ways, as it relates to inhabiting a body, and the lines of sovereignty there. So I feel with Venus passing over the South Node, it's like something really big is able to move here that is both deeply our own and also deeply ancestral. And I say that also with the intent to acknowledge that our whole world is an ancestral inheritance. Like, the moment we're in culturally is part of lineage. The generation that we are a part of is part of this, right? Like, the ancestral matrix is not just about you and your lineage. It's about the collective lineage, the collective moment we're all inhabiting together, and how all of our ancestors contributed to leading us here in both beautiful and challenging ways. And so just seeing, like, this is a collective moment of that kind of reckoning and release with Venus on the South Node conjunct Regulus. So that's on Friday, Venus Day. And then I want to share this ahead of time. This is where I'll end. But on Sunday, July 12th, this is next Sunday, but just for folks to have a heads up, we have a Mercury Cazimi. The blessing of every Mercury retrograde is the Cazimi moment. And Mercury moves in threes, so this is the one where as Mercury's going backwards, they will pass over the sun and come into the heart of the sun, Cazimi. It's happening in Cancer, and so there's a moment of real breakthrough and clarity, and almost like I always feel when a planet's Cazimi, it's getting like an energy clearing from that solar illuminating energy, right? Like, especially with Mercury in our stories, in our sense of perception around reality, right? Our vantage point is getting clarified. And this feels just so generous and like such a relief to be happening amidst all the other churning. Like, we have this moment of being able to see and have the aha moment, or have like a little breadcrumb that keeps us on the path of clarity, right? That keeps us oriented towards what's helpful, really. That's what I find Cazimis to do, is like keep us oriented towards what's helpful. So that's on Sunday, July 12th. And of course, I'll share more for the week ahead onwards after that next week. But yeah, just lots of gratitude for you all, for those that listen to this musing. I always love to hear from you and how this all lands, because we're in it together truly, and I can only see so much from my vantage point, So may this astrology be gentle with you. May you find ways to, just be in your center in ways that are like really just for you to feel good and grounded with what's really available here, And we'll see you next week for the new moon in Cancer. I'm very excited about that. It's our most dignified new moon of the year. So we'll talk more about that next week. And that's all for now. Much love, my friends. Take good care of yourselves and one another.